Take a look at this. The camera knows where I am, and if I want to start tracking, I just have to press the joystick once and then it holds the composition, meaning that it keeps me in the exact spot in the frame where I was when I started tracking. What you just saw was the brand new frame tracking feature, and that's just one of many major updates in the latest firmware update for the Pocket 4 that DJI has just rolled out. So if you love it when your hardware gets updated with real usable features instead of just meaningless bug fixes, then you need to watch now, because we're going through all the new stuff. And believe me, there are a few features in there that fundamentally change the way you can use your camera on a daily basis. But unfortunately, there's also a massive disappointment. Also, just a quick announcement, I'll soon be releasing a review of the brand new Pocket 4P camera, so remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. And if there's anything specific you'd like me to test, leave a comment below. Let's start by looking at something that could potentially save your shots the next time the lighting gets tricky. With the Pocket 4 Creator Combo package, you get this little fill light that can be attached directly to the camera's gimbal and is brilliant for example, giving you just a bit more light on your face. It has 3 different color tones to choose from, but what if you're unsure which one best matches the ambient light? Or if the light changes along the way, then you risk the color of your skin looking completely wrong or the image just looking strange. DJI has tried to solve that problem with full automation of the fill light features. But the question is, can you even trust the camera to figure it out on its own? Or will it end up completely ruining your shot? You'll get the answer in just a moment, because first we need to lock the camera onto my face. We can do that with a new feature I showed at the beginning, frame tracking. The concept is brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of having to double tap the screen to select what you want to track, or activate focus track selfie so the camera starts tracking as soon as you turn the lens towards yourself, it now monitors the scene and automatically matches and selects an active track subject. When the system spots a subject, for example yourself, a frame pops up on the screen. When the subject is where you want it in the frame, you just press the joystick once. The camera then immediately begins to follow what you've selected. It might not sound like an improvement, but the difference between the new feature and regular tracking is that frame tracking retains the current composition. Normally, when you activate active track, whatever you're tracking gets centered, so it's in the middle of the frame, but that's not always optimal. Maybe you want to show more of the background, or maybe you want to use the rule of thirds and place yourself to one side. And that's precisely what you can do with the new frame track feature, because it remembers the object's placement in the frame and tries to maintain it. With the normal active track feature, you can change the framing after you started tracking by panning the camera with the joystick. But with the new frame track feature, you don't have to. Now that our framing is as it should be, let's test the little fill light here. Here, as mentioned, DJI has added support for automatic adjustment of brightness and color temperature. When you turn that feature on in the settings, the camera should automatically adapt the brightness and color temperature to the surroundings, saving you from having to guess the correct setting or manually switching on the small lamp. I've already used the fill light several times in my video. It's actually really practical. So it was a feature I was quite excited to see, but unfortunately it just doesn't work 100%. In my studio, I can change the strength and color temperature of my lights, giving me full control over the lighting. But unfortunately, the Pocket 4 doesn't react entirely consistently. Yes, the color temperature changes, but only between 2 of the settings. Perhaps that's because the lamp's 3 temperatures don't quite match the 3 I'm switching between, but what's even worse is that the brightness doesn't change at all. Even when I turn off the light completely, it stays on the lowest setting, even though it should increase the brightness. That's a huge disappointment, because otherwise it would be a genuinely useful feature that would make everyday life easier. The problem is also that if you manually adjust either color or brightness, the feature turns off completely, so you can't even turn up the brightness a bit yourself without subsequently having to go into the menu to reactivate the automatic mode. Fortunately, there are several other new features with the potential to streamline your workflow, and one of them is the ability to automatically upload your shots directly from the camera to a cloud service. And no, it's not just a useless proprietary DJI cloud where you have to pay a fortune. It's an integration with the systems that we already use. However, I'm not super excited about that feature either, but before I show you how it works, there are a few updates regarding the operation of the camera you need to see, because significant changes have happened here as well, and they're actually quite useful. In my review of the Pocket 4, I mentioned that I was pretty excited about the new buttons under the display, and that the custom button in particular had become one I hate to be without. But with the new update, DJI has made it even better. They've added a new press and hold setting. Previously, when you held down the custom button, it opened the settings menu so you could change what the button does on a single, double or triple click. But that's not something you use very often, so with the new update, you can instead set the button to zoom out when you press and hold it. You can still set it to open the settings if you need quick access without having to open a submenu, but I reckon you'll need to zoom out more often because the update also adds a press and hold feature to the zoom button on the left. If you press the zoom button once, it zooms 2 times, and if you double press it, you get 4 times zoom. That's not new, but both happen quite quickly. If you prefer slower zoom, you can now press and hold the button instead, and it will continuously zoom from 1x up to 4x. And with the new setting on the custom button, it now does the opposite. So together, the 2 buttons works as zoom in and zoom out. But it doesn't stop there. If you shoot a lot for YouTube Shorts, Instagram or TikTok, you'll love the next feature. One of the criticisms of the Pocket 4 was that when you use the screen vertically, the custom button is hidden, so you can't use it. But that has also been solved in the new update. DJI has simply added a virtual custom button directly on the screen when you're shooting in portrait mode. The virtual button supports a single press, a double press, a triple press, and yes, you guessed it, press and hold. So now you have access to the exact same features when you're shooting vertically. I hope DJI continues to expand the options for the custom button, because right now, for example, you can only choose between 2 different features for the triple press and hold. And I like to see the ability to choose between all features regardless of whether you press once, twice, 3 times or press and hold the button, giving us even more ways to operate the camera. We'll see if that comes in a future update. And speaking of operating the camera, DJI has also added support for the new Osmo Frame Tab remote control that comes with their mobile 8P gimbal. This means you can remotely control the camera with a dedicated remote without needing to use the DJI Mimo app on your phone. Right now, it doesn't look like you can buy the Frame Tab remote separately, but hopefully that's only temporary, because otherwise the new feature wouldn't be that useful. But what about that cloud service support? How do you set it up, and is it actually useful? Well, to activate the cloud feature, your camera must be connected to the DJI Mimo app on your phone. Under Settings, you can then add a cloud service, and here in Denmark where I live, you can choose between Google Drive or OneDrive. Or, and this is probably the most interesting part, if you have a network drive at home, you can choose that too. Regardless of what you choose, the feature does the same thing. When your camera is turned off and set to charge, it will automatically begin uploading all the videos to the network drive you configured, whether it's located in the cloud or locally. I don't have a network drive myself, so I tested it with Google Drive, and I must admit it wasn't all that impressive. Even though I have a pretty fast Wi-Fi connection and a gigabit fiber connection that easily gives me 600 to 800 megabits per second on my iPhone, the Pocket 4 only uploads at about 3 to 4 megabytes per second, which corresponds to a 30 to 40 megabit connection, or about 20 times slower than what should be possible. It says it's due to network limitations, but as I said, my iPhone has no problems on the same network. Of course, this all happens while the camera is just sitting there charging anyway, but I did expect somewhat higher speeds. Maybe it's faster with the local drive, I don't know, but I don't think I'll be using it. However, I can see the advantage if, for example, several people are working together or you have multiple cameras. When you come home from a shoot, you just put all the cameras on charge, and then all the video files automatically show up on the shared drive after a while. But even if that particular feature might not fit your workflow or mine, there's another important improvement in the new update that might. The Pocket 4 has 3 so-called smart gimbal modes that you can activate by tapping on the middle left side of the screen. Spotlight Follow automatically tracks the registered person closest to the center of the frame and keeps them centered in the shot. Dynamic Framing lets you choose one of 9 points on the screen, and the person or the object located at the marked point when you press the joystick is automatically tracked and held in the same place in the frame. Finally, there's spin shot, which lets you take shots where the mechanical gimbal rotates. When you're done using one of the smart gimbal modes, you can tap the same menu on the screen and then deactivate it. But until now, every time you turned off the camera, the smart gimbal mode would also be deactivated, even if you hadn't turned it off yourself. That's annoying if, for example, you're in the middle of a series of shots that all require the smart gimbal mode, because then you have to manually reactivate it every time you turn the camera off and on again between shots. But with the new update, the Pocket 4 remembers if a smart gimbal mode was active when you turned it off, and reactivates it when you turn it back on. Another small workflow improvement. In addition to all the new features, the update naturally also contains bug fixes and stability improvements, which is always nice. But personally, I was most looking forward to the automatic control of the little fill light. So I hope another update comes out soon to fix the issues I saw. However, I do think the new frame track feature is something I'll also be using quite a bit. But what's your favorite? And is there anything you're still missing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And also, remember that subscribing to my channel is completely free. And if you haven't seen my 30-day review of the Pocket 4, it's right there. See you soon!